Hey, good afternoon, guys. It's Stephen from LOJ Conversions here. It is Saturday, January 14th, and I'm trying something new this year. I'm going to try to do a video update on status of what's going on with LOJ, the company, and what's going on with some of the builds that we have going on right now. For those of you that have been following us, probably the best way to get updates on all of our projects is on Instagram at LOJ Conversions. Tried my best to continually post pictures of where we're at with different builds that are going on, as well as new product development. And I want to use this video platform. I'm going to shoot for once a week. Forgive me if I don't get to it that often, or depending on feedback, it may end as well. But my idea is to try to give all of our customers out there an update of where the company's going, where some of the new products are going to be coming out, and timelines when they can expect those things, and what's going on with the builds that are in-house, because LOJ's got a number of cars lined up right now to get put together with different swaps, different platforms, trucks, cars, Volvo station wagons, you name it, they're all in the queue. So I want to be able to get more feedback from the customer base and let you get to know the company and myself better. So this week, for the first week, I'm going to give a little update on this car that's sitting right here behind me. If you have been following us on Instagram, you're going to know this by the hashtag Carl Marrow. This is a 1969 Chevy Camaro that is getting a 2003 Corvette LS6 engine. The idea with this car, it's being built as a street car. It's not a pro touring car, it's not a drag car, it's going to be driven on the street. The owner is a local client. He wants to be able to get in this car here in New Jersey and drive it down to his home in Florida if he wants, cruise wherever he wants. Obviously he wants performance, he wants a look, he wants a real clean engine bay, a real attention to detail, which is the kind of builds that I love. I love when an owner like this gives me some creative flexibility to kind of put my vision on a car. So I want to just point out some of the things that we're doing right now. Obviously the front clip is pulled off the car and the front subframe is rolled out from under the car. Just gives us better access for mocking a lot of stuff up. But some of the things you'll see on this car that I guess are a little atypical. We did an MSD atomic intake manifold on this car. Didn't leave it the factory plastic, painted the lettering, put billet fuel rails on it. This motor, when it came to us, it came pulled out of a running 2003 Corvette. It's got ported heads and a cam in it. Beyond that, a lot of information wasn't really known about it. We know it did run when it was pulled, so that's good. We've got the PCM that was in the car that was dyno tuned, so we're going to be able to use that as a baseline when we go to tune it for some of the other mods that are being done. But in the vein of trying to do a real clean engine bay, clean looking install, we're gearing up for a real tucked look on a lot of the plumbing and a lot of the wiring. A lot of times with LS swaps, some of the classic guys don't like the way all the EFI wiring looks in the car, and it's understandable. You know, a lot of older cars like these that still have the original 350s or big blocks in them that are carbureted. It's a real clean looking engine bay, and we want to try to keep it that way even with the LS conversion. One of the big things that guys hate about the LS motors is the way the coil packs look on the valve covers. This car, we've done a coil pack relocation. We're in the midst of it right now. This past week, we mounted up the coil packs down here on the frame rail, 4 on each side. It's going to allow us, obviously, to mount the coil packs down low. We're going to be able to run the spark plug wires under the engine here and come up under the exhaust header and use 90-degree spark plug terminals with obviously with heat protection on them to keep the plug wires hidden behind the exhaust headers. We've got 90-degree terminals here on the coil packs as well. Obviously the spark plug wires are going to be custom. And one of the challenges you run into when you want to configure an LS engine like this, especially when you want to buy like an off-the-shelf engine conversion harness, either a new harness or rework a factory harness. Factory harnesses and a lot of the off-the-shelf harnesses, most of the off-the-shelf harnesses are set up for like the coils to be on the valve covers, not down here. So you would have to pull apart the harness, extend wires, things like that. Well, we have a pretty good working relationship with a company in the LS community. They're known as PSI Conversion. You may or may not have heard of them. If you haven't, look them up, do a Google search. Great company. They do great work with wiring harnesses. They always keep their products in stock. Their tech support is awesome. Can't say enough good things about those guys up there. And I've been working with the owner at PSI, his name's John, on a new product they're going to be introducing, and maybe I'm opening the can here for you guys that might not have been aware, but there's a product where they're going to call it a builder's harness. And essentially what it's going to be, instead of being a brand new harness that's a finished product with everything loomed and ready to just be dropped in, hook up a couple wires and go, it's actually going to be a bag of pigtails. And essentially there's going to be every connector, so there'll be 8 coil pack connectors, 8 injector connectors, your mass air connector, TPS, IAC, etc., knock sensors. And all of those connectors will already have pre-wired pre-wired 10-foot pigtails of wire on them that will allow you to plug in all of the sensors wherever they are in your engine bay, if your coil packs are down low, whatever, depending what accessory, drive running, where your alternator connectors are, things like that, and then route those wires through the engine bay exactly where you want to route them, zip tie them all in place as a mock-up. And all the wires have the individual pins printed on the wire for what terminal they go to on the PCM, and the kit will come with PCM connectors, PCM terminals. You'll be able to cut, strip, crimp the PCM terminals together, place the PCM in the vehicle exactly where you want it. That's why it's called the builder's harness. You build it yourself to exactly what you want it to be for that vehicle. And then once you get it all roughed together, you can pull the harness back out. The kit will come with loom. You can loom it yourself. I believe there's going to be either the standard corrugated loom or the mesh style loom. Again, a lot of these things are still being worked out because it's a product that's in development, but it's a product that I'm real excited about because a lot of the builds we do, an off-the-shelf harness doesn't necessarily fit the look perfectly that the client's going for. So having something like this allows me as a business that's doing LS conversions not have to go through the trouble of completely building a harness myself, to take a lot of the hard part out of it, and it gives me the flexibility to configure the engine bay how I want. So I'm real excited to be working on that. John from PSI is actually going to be down here this coming week. I'm going to try to do a little video footage of us doing some work on that, maybe a little discussion back and forth with him about the product. But essentially, that's what we're going for with this car, is a real clean, tucked look in the engine bay. Right now it's a mock-up, so you're going to say, oh, well, a real clean look, and you got this rusty harmonic balancer and all. Yeah, I get it. This is a rough-in. We'll get the harness mocked up. Then all this is coming apart. The engine's coming back out. This actually has a Hummer H3 oil pan on the motor right now, which, while it fits with this conversion, the pan hangs a little low for how low this car is going to be riding, especially with how much street use it's going to see. So we're going to pull that pan out and run a Holley, I believe it's a 302-2 hot rod oil pan. It's a lot better ground clearance. It'll also give us better clearance to this front cross member because it's a little close for my liking right now. I may actually end up lowering the motor a little bit in the chassis because of how much more clearance that Holley pan gives. This car's got, I believe they're just some eBay headers that were dented on one side to clear the steering box. They're going to come off. LOJ does a lot of work with Cooks. Cooks has a nice set of headers, stainless, that are made for this conversion in this car, while retaining a steering box, not rack and pinion. So the primaries on the driver's side are routed around that steering box. We're going to switch over to those. And then once we get all that stuff mocked up, the headers are probably going to go out and get jet hot coated. We're stripping down the front subframe. It's going to get powder coated. Firewall is going to get cleaned up. We've got obviously a hydraulic clutch conversion. This is a manual trans car. It's got a 2010 Camaro TR6060 trans in it with a single disc clutch. So we have it's a hydraulic clutch conversion kit from Hirsch Drivelines going into this car to allow us to retain the factory pedal assembly in the car, but have a hydraulically actuated clutch so that we can keep this factory style slave cylinder and all that came with this transmission. You can see the valve covers are orange, but they're Chevy orange, the car's Hugger orange. So what we're going to end up doing is, believe it or not, pulling those covers off, blasting them and recoating them in another orange that is a closer match to the car. We're getting a lot of swatches coming in from a couple different powder companies to try to find an orange that matches the best, or as close as we can. The fuel rails, I don't know if you can see in the video, but if you look on our Instagram feed, did something a little unique with the fuel rails. MSD makes these intake manifolds. They're specifically designed to work with an LS2 or LS3 style fuel rail, even in an LS1/6 application like this intake is. So what that means is that on the top of the intake here, there's a cast-in groove on the intake manifold for that factory crossover tube to go through. And when you convert to a billet style fuel rail like this, the typical setup on a billet fuel rail on an LS engine is either you run a feed into the back of one rail, a crossover on the front from the driver to the passenger side, or vice versa. Then you return out the back if you're running a return style, or just cap the back of the rail if the car is set up as returnless still. Or maybe on higher horsepower applications, you might run a Y block, feed the front end of both rails, return out of the back of both rails to an aftermarket pressure regulator. But no matter how you slice it, with aftermarket rails, you get rid of that crossover that's in the middle. So when you put that kind of fuel rail setup on this MSD Atomic, you're left with that groove in the middle of the intake that, in my opinion, looks out of place. And with an aesthetic, detail-oriented build like this, I wanted to do something about that. So trying something a little different, we welded some Dash 8 AN fittings onto the middle of each fuel rail and are running an 8 AN hardline crossover tube between the rails. And the passenger side rail has plugs in the front and the back. The driver's side rail has a pressure gauge on the front, and the fuel will be fed into the back. That'll allow us to tuck the fuel line behind the engine, between the firewall and the engine, and it'll fill that space in the intake manifold, really clean up the look on top of the motor. Those fuel rails are going to get powder coated the same orange that the valve covers are going to get re-powder coated in. So some of the stuff we're doing to clean it up, like I said, tucking the plug wires, cleaning up the top of the motor. This factory alternator is going to come off. We're either going to send it out and have it polished and powdered clear, or we might buy an aftermarket billet style polished alternator to kind of complement the look of the polished AC compressor from Vintage Air. So you're going to keep seeing on the Instagram feed more and more updates of parts getting mocked up, like the wiring harness like I was talking about, and a couple other things. Once that's done, gets torn apart, all the parts go out to get coated, all the different colors they need to be painted, prepped, cleaned, whatever. Then it's final reassembly for the front subframe into the car. And then we have to hang the front clip on it. Then we have to address the cooling system, oil cooler, power steering cooler, get all the air conditioning plumbed in the car, get the whole interior back together. There's no interior in this car at all right now. So that's why I say this is a bit of a long-term build. Probably at least going to be here till the June, July, August timeframe of this year. It's getting worked on simultaneously with some of the other projects here. You might be able to see behind me the shop car, the Project 10s for 10 300ZX. That car was built last year. We had a budget of $10,000. We wanted to run 10-second quarter miles. We did that. The car's got a essentially stock LS3 with a Texas speed cam in it and a built turbo 400. And that car went 10.3 at 127. Stock springs, stock shocks, stock rear diff, stock rear axles, stock bushings. Didn't even do an alignment in the back. That was a Hurricane Sandy flood car that was recovered. All the alignment adjusting nuts and bolts in the back are seized in that car, so we couldn't even change the alignment if we wanted to without tearing the subframe out, torching it apart, all that, which I didn't want to get into last year. We might address that this year. But goal was accomplished, and it's the irony. I joke with some of my buddies, yes, it was 10s for 10s, and now it's going to be 9s for another 10 more, which is probably true, if not more than that, but that's what it costs. You want to go fast, it costs more and more money. We'll see what happens with that car this year. I think we're going to do a little bit of weight reduction this spring before we get out on the track, and then run it at the power level it's at, hopefully run mid, low 10s in the car, and then next year we'll figure out what the plan is for that. You can't see in the video, but up on the lift behind me is the Project #427Z. That's a 1992 300ZX for a client out of state. That car came up from Georgia. That car is getting a ERL 427 short block, West Coast cylinder heads. The motor's already in the car. That's going through final assembly type stuff, getting the harness in the car. This car, because it's an LS6 Gen 3 24X, it's getting a 24X Gen 3 builder's harness from PSI. The 427 car, that is a 58X Gen 4 setup, so we're going to use the 58X builder's harness on that car to do a proof of concept and all on that platform. So I'm excited about both of these cars because aesthetically they're both going for very similar clean looks and using those harnesses in both cars. Beyond that, we've got a number of different cars lined up. You might have seen the shop G35 sedan. It's an 05 sedan getting an L76. That's a development car for LOJ swap kit. We have the full basic motor mount package for doing an LS conversion into a 350Z or G35, retaining the factory 6-speed, but what's not done yet is our long tube headers, our accessory drive kit, cooling system, air intake, those other ancillaries, fuel system. That car is going to be used for finalizing the rest of those products. So we've already got the design for the 350Z accessory drive package done. We're going to be machining the prototype parts this week, getting it installed on that car. As long as all the fitment's right, belt alignment's good and all, we can go to production on those parts. Again, that's a product that's going to allow you to keep the factory G35 350Z alternator, power steering pump, and AC compressor bolted to an LS engine. We keep them in their factory locations, which is the opposite of every GM application. You're going to have your AC compressor on the driver's side, your power steering and alternator on the passenger side, so that your factory AC hoses, power steering hose, and all can be retained. You don't have to buy a new accessory package when you swap your motor. You can just buy this kit that allows you to retain your existing ancillaries, your existing plumbing, really simplifies things. We've offered this for years now on the 300ZX with a lot of praise from our customers, and we're going to do the same thing for the G35 350Z. You may have seen the hashtag XTerrified on our Instagram feed. We have a kit coming out for the 2005 and up Nissan Xterra and Nissan Pathfinder V6 manual transmission trucks. Right there is another L76 out of a Silverado that is going into an 05 Xterra. This coming weekend, we'll actually be dropping that motor in. Probably can't see further in the background, but there's an Xterra trans bolted to an LS motor back there. Again, an adapter kit to allow the LS motor to bolt to the transmission that's in the vehicle, so there's no custom drive shafts, no custom transmission mount, no shifter relocation. Keep it simple. You swap the motor. You don't swap the whole drivetrain in the car, or in the truck in that case. So a lot of exciting things coming up in 2017 for LOJ, and that's why I'm going to start doing this video update every week. Expect it to be a couple minutes. This one's running a little long. Looks like we're getting near 17, 18 minutes on this one. But I'm excited about this. I'm excited about this year and what it has in store for this company. I hope that you enjoy these videos every week, maybe every 2 weeks, to give you updates on where we're at with all these products and projects. And look forward to your comments. The best way always to get in touch with LOJ is info@lojkits.com via email. You'll get me probably within 15 minutes. You'll have a response from me or somebody else at the company answering your questions. Otherwise, you can comment or DM us at LOJ Conversions on Instagram, or here on YouTube. You'll be able to comment on this video, and I may or may not get to all the comments and reply. So if you want to get in touch with me or anyone else, you can, like I said, info@LOJ Innovation, or info@lojkits.com, at LOJ Conversions on Instagram, 844-565-5487 or 844-LOJ-KITS. It's an 800 number. Call us from anywhere. You'll get in touch with me probably 99% of the time. And look forward to talking to you. Look forward to your feedback. Look forward to your comments. If you have any ideas for products you think that would be really helpful to the community that maybe nobody else, no other companies have tackled yet, let us know. Maybe it's something we'd be willing to take on. And look forward to talking to you guys. All right, take care.